I know what it's like to be in the crosshairs of the most powerful person in the world, to be attacked viciously, not because I said something untrue, but because I said something people did not want to hear. And it was about a popular president. You know, to politicians, only sides matter, and the truth becomes the casualty. I think we're all a bit different. Whistleblowers believe that truth is not disposable, not dispensable. Integrity and honor mean something. And to those who see us as betrayers, if we're seen through a lens of negativity, then my question to them is, if I'm not a team player, whose team? Whose team? You know, in my case, my duty, Steve talked about duty, my oath was to the office of the presidency, to the institution, not to the sitting incumbent. And I was true to that oath. I told the truth, but I do fault myself for not having the gumption or the courage to do it sooner. I was faced with a culture of corruption, and again, this is not partisan in any way, that was infecting the office of the presidency. I was quiet for many years. I was afraid on many levels to speak up. There was a quote, and I will give you that quote. Open quote, "We will just have to destroy them." End quote. I first heard these startling words in the West Wing of the White House. They were chilling. They were not directed at me. But in early 1998, I began to fully comprehend what the politics of personal destruction really means. And you know, they say forewarned is forearmed. So I knew what was coming, but I was ill prepared for the power and the fury and, in the end, the overwhelming effectiveness of the smear campaign. What had seemed abstract to me, we'll just have to destroy them, was now personal, and I was the target. I know what a real high-tech lynching feels like. I felt like that's exactly what happened. It began with the smoke and mirrors you saw on your TV, where it turned a sitting president into a victim of a vast conspiracy. It was the full frontal attack on anyone who would dare speak against him, the destruction of another human being, and the besmirchment, belittling, and ridiculing for political gain. When the villain is magically victimized, which is essentially what happened, the wrongdoer became the victim. That's when, in my case, the whistleblower was essentially destroyed through all these allegations and the ridicule and humiliation that I suffered at the hands of a complicit media, certainly a willing entertainment industry. So it was not pleasant, and it was very unpleasant for my family, and for that I'll always be sorry. You know, there are two things that I think we got out of today with a lot of the speakers, actually. We all end up sharing a couple of things. First, I don't even know how to quantify this, but it's a feeling of sheer loneliness, a feeling of an utter sense of isolation until you meet them. But a feeling that you're on your own and that no one really is on your side. There's nothing quite like it, and there's nothing that can prepare you for it. But then comes the second phase, and I think we all face this on some level. The retaliation, the retribution, the personal and the professional attacks. When you speak truth to power, the powerful push back. When this story broke, the 24-hour news cycle was in its infancy. Back then, it was normal news at normal times of day, and there was just so much they could fit in. However, that changed. My story was tailor-made for this very thing. And for me, it was the birth of advocacy journalism. It was a time when reporting took a backseat to opinion journalism and slant. And it was all filtered, most importantly, through a political lens. So while I was watching this, as everyone else was, I was pretty stunned at the portrayal. It colored the national dialogue. It formed national opinion based on very little fact at all. And in my opinion, victimized the wrong person. I hope that my being here today can help change that dynamic, even if just a little bit, so that whistleblowers, future whistleblowers with just causes, can avoid the harsh reality I faced. I blew the whistle on not just a powerful person, but the most powerful person in the world. It was not until I became aware that the president was informed that I, quote, knew everything, that I decided to act. To this day, I regret that I didn't do so sooner. But when, in July of '97, that I became aware of what he knew, I threw caution to the winds and accepted that my career, my livelihood, my pension, and by then I think it had spanned a good 7 years, federal civil service. I knew all of it would be a casualty of the action I was going to take. And to those out there who say I did this for personal gain, I say, standing here 20 years later, what did I stand to gain then or now? I stood to lose everything, and in fact I did. And yet, if I had to do it all over again, I would. Thank you. I will say I simply couldn't have lived with myself had I failed to act. It was poorly done. There was no handbook, there was no manual that said this is how you take on a sitting president as a lowly civil servant. But had I done things that might have been better for me in terms of gathering evidence, like taking contemporaneous notes, documenting evidence 2 years before I finally did the catch-up to recreate on celluloid what I had been hearing in a horrifying fashion for 2 years. Had I done all that, perhaps the end result would have been different. It might have been the removal of a president from office. And again, what I provided to the independent counsel was insufficient. Had I had the proof that I should have had, the result would have been different.